Right.
Oh,
Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That woke everybody up, didn't it? Just don't ask me to repeat it. Right, thank you to all the members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Councillors and officers are reminded of their commitment to the Civility and Respect Pledge and be mindful of this during today's meeting. Please be aware that the Council is video recording this meeting and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel in due course. And I'd just like to highlight some of the key points for the meeting format. Can I please make sure that everybody's got their phones turned off or to silent? Fire exits, this is where I do my EasyJet participation, are through the doors out of the chambers and down the external fire escape or the main entrance via the main entrance where you enter the building. And if, in the event of a fire, you should not use the lift. Assembly point is outside the Royal Mail Parcel Office in West Street. And please remain seated unless you're invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are out in the corridor and on the left. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. Public participation is limited to 4 minutes per person and must be relating to an item of business on the agenda. So I, as chair, will interject if we need to enforce this. So it would help if you could tell us what agenda item you're speaking to. When the public participation agenda is introduced, please raise your hand to show that you wish to speak and I will invite you. If you're comfortable standing, please do so that you can be heard by others in the room. You don't need to state your name when you start speaking if you wish not to, but we ask that you clearly state which agenda item you're talking about. And I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item to avoid distractions for others. Welcome, Councillor Honeyman. Members of the public looking to leave the building will need to be escorted out by a council officer. If the meeting goes into confidential session, a short 2-minute break will be held to allow members to leave. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned at any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order and I will then gesture and ask you to elaborate. If anyone else is present is thought to be behaving unacceptably, they will be ejected from the meeting by joint resolution. So thank you for listening. And on behalf of the Council, I, Maggie Wearmouth, who's the Chair of the Community Services for this last meeting, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this Council meeting. Thank you. Right, Georgia, do we have apologies?
Yes, so we've got apologies from Councillor Jeff Rutland with work commitments and the interim town clerk also sent his apologies. He's really on that.
Okay. We wish him a speedy recovery. Right, item 2, disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests, as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Do we have any disclosures? No. Right, item 3, participation by the public. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. Do we have anyone who would like, members of the public who would like to participate? Right. Crisis. Okay. The lady second from my right, on the front row, please. Yes, please.
Okay. Firstly, thank you to the committee for taking this opportunity to... Sorry, item 4 on the agenda.
Thank you.
I apologise. Thank you for taking this opportunity to discuss the parking difficulties at South Hill Barn that the increased visitor numbers have caused. Our tourism numbers can be expected to continue to grow this year. For example, we know that one of the existing tour operators visiting the barn car park will be adding Turkish tourists to the guests visiting the area. Visitors to Seaford are all too often the selfie and go tourist who doesn't linger or spend in the local area. We must find a way to address this and give them reason to linger and spend. Minibuses carrying international tourists are visiting South Hill Barn to take photographs of the Seven Sisters, after which they get back on the minibus and head off elsewhere. Or some, as I witnessed recently, huddle in the outbuildings at South Hill Barn, where they have coffee from the concession or pot noodles supplied by their tour guide. I admit this was a particularly cold day, but the tourists looked as though they just wanted to be somewhere warm and dry, with refreshments and a loo available. Why are they not being directed to the View? Minibuses could park at the View, and facilities are already on tap. We've seen the astonishing speed with which TikTok crazes and other social media campaigns take off, leaving any of those dealing with the impact scrambling to catch up. The recent informal meeting between councillors, officers and residents to discuss the draft Lewis local plan was an excellent example of partnership working. Is it possible to form a similar working party to monitor and respond to the ever-evolving issues that growing visitor numbers are creating in our town? Residents have asked previously if a town councillor can be given tourism as part of their portfolio. Is this something under active consideration? Currently, as a resident, if you notice an issue concerning visitor safety, it is very difficult to know who to direct this to and to know it will be given appropriate consideration. For example, the footpath from South Hill Barn to Coastguard Cottages is in need of repair. Seaford Town Council and the South Downs National Park advertise this path as suitable for those with mobility issues. Currently, this path is certainly not usable for those with such issues. South Downs National Park and East Surrey County Council tell me that they can't help. It's up to Seaford Town Council to deal with this one. Whilst on the subject of accessibility, South Hill Barn is not just the gateway to the iconic view of the Seven Sisters. The view from the picnic area is very beautiful too. In the Miles Without Stars literature, issued by both South Downs National Park and Seaford Town Council, we encourage those with mobility issues to visit this area for the most accessible view of the Seven Sisters. Is there a way we could enhance the picnic area here? Those with mobility issues may wish to spend time here, but currently the tables and chairs in the picnic area are not accessible to them. Could we improve this and develop part of the space to be accessible? I don't know if Seaford Town Council ever employs a bid writer for projects, but funding is often available when access for those with mobility issues are involved. And I am sure an experienced bid writer would be able to help with a later item on the agenda, Hope Gap Steps, particularly as this is in such an iconic, internationally important location. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good timing. Thank you. Right. While I remember, we do have some written submissions as well, but they are relevant, but I'll leave them till the end so we keep the flow going. Okay, gentlemen on the right.
Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of related to the same thing, really, but I am one of those companies that organises tours up to Seaford Head, not just Seaford Head, but all around the South Downs. I'm the director of Brighton Beyond Tours. So I did send in a letter, but I've also got it here to read out. So, dear councillors, I'm writing you to express my concern regarding the proposed introduction of the height barrier at South Hill Barn car park. I understand the intention is to prevent large coaches from accessing the site, but I'm worried the restrictions would affect our 16-seat minibuses, which would have a severe impact on the business. I founded Brighton and Beyond Tours 10 years ago in 2015 with a goal of showcasing the incredible beauty of the South Downs and the Seven Sisters to visitors from around the world. Over the past 10 years, I've invested significantly in time, energy and resources to build an award-winning locally based tour company. Our flagship South Downs and Seven Sisters tour has become our most popular offering, running year-round, bringing thousands of visitors to Seaford Head. Last year we brought 6,000 people to the area to enjoy the iconic views of the Seven Sisters. Our company operates a fleet of 3 minibuses, each sitting a maximum of 16 passengers, ensuring we provide small, sustainable and well-managed group tours. We now employ 7 guides and drivers from the local area, supporting the community through job creation and contributing to the region's tourist economy. We are also proud to have been named Experience of the Year by Tourism South East 3 times, most recently in December last year. And we've been nominated for the National Visit England Awards, which are being held later this year. The impact of a height barrier, if it did restrict minibuses, would be disastrous for my business. Many of our guests are older travellers, including retirees and those with limited mobility, for whom access is essential. If our vehicles were unable to enter, it would severely limit their ability to experience one of the most breathtaking and unique coastal views in the country. Beyond our direct impact, our tours contribute to the local economy, as we make lunch stops in Alfriston and also at Middle Farm in Firle, supporting independent Sussex businesses. Additionally, I've worked extensively with Visit Britain, hosting international journalists and travel agents to promote the region to a global audience, including recent groups from the USA, South America, China and Hong Kong. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss the matter further and explore how we can continue to facilitate responsible access to South Hill Barn car park while addressing the council's concerns. Please let me know if a meeting would be possible. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope we can find a solution that supports both Seaford's visitor economy and responsible tourism in the South Downs. And just to emphasise, we don't take coaches. I've noticed over the last year to 18 months, it's really taken off, and there's lots of groups coming down from London and bringing coaches as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've also got a printout of this, and we've got your contact details, I believe.
Yeah, should do. I've got a card I can
So thank you for that, because it's very nice to have a balanced view, and we want to take this forward responsibly and sustainably. So we need a lot of different viewpoints to actually come to a compromise and a sensible way forward. Thank you. There was a lady next on the back row. Yes, Sylvia, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Most of you know me, Sylvia Dunn. I'm discussing Agenda Item 4, Section 1, the Martello Changing Places. 1.1 states the facility operated on a code entry basis, and now the council has disabled the code entry keypad 1.3 and reverted to access solely by radar key. This will not only ensure full accessibility to those who need it, but also to anyone else, especially those without a disability, as radar keys can be easily purchased on the internet, a pack of 3 keys for £5.29. Irrespective of the consultation, 1.4, it will also be a target for vandalism and theft, as the equipment contained within is very expensive, and I am concerned on that basis. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Right, the gentleman in the middle.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As a former Vice Chairman of the Community Services Committee, it is with a sense of slight sorrow that I understand this will be the last meeting of the Community Services Committee in its original form. I served on it for 8 years and I heartily enjoyed it, and I know I can see some familiar faces, some of whom I served with and some of whom I didn't. But thank you very much for all the work that's been done with the committee. I'm presently representing the Van Godway Association. Van Godway goes right through the middle of Seaford and is a large part of the King Charles III National Park. And I think I'm referring to the section of the agenda referring to Hope Gap Steps. We would like desperately to see the Hope Gap Steps repaired if possible. I do know from having inspected them in the past there are a lot of issues regarding erosion and the gabions that surround them at the base, which presumably are not a very good state at the moment. Last time I looked at them was about 10 years ago. But there are other issues with the Vanguard Way that we're also concerned about, particularly this the Chington Brooks. What we are presently proposing to do is we've been, I thought the council would like to know this, we're being asked to consult on the future of the Chington Brooks project and to go on site and have a look at it, because obviously it's a vast change to the layout of the present Cuttmere, and I think Councillor Walraven will remember that in the past we've committed, Seaford Council committed itself publicly to support the present arrangement of the haven without areas being flooded. And obviously Chington Brooks actually floods the west side of the haven and or the walk down to the haven, which would mean the Vanguard Way and the path from the Cuttmere Inn would have to be displaced further up the hill over Seaford Town Council owned land, and that would obviously form quite a major rearrangement of the system, because what I understand is in the event of high tides and storm tides, if you break down that path or the canal wall to the west of the canal, then the water would come in and surge around areas that are low-lying, including a small segment of Seaford Town Council owned land, which in the past I was happy to kind of identify with former town clerk Len Fisher, and that was something we didn't know about. That gave us a proprietary interest in the future of the valley. But thank you very much for letting me speak about the Vanguard Way. I do have some leaflets here, and we're happy to talk about it to any of the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just very briefly return that, because I am the outside body rep for the Chington Brooks programme project. It is being initiated by the National Trust.
Yeah.
It has been going for a couple of years, and the plan is to breach a couple of the points of the public bridle way to the east of the Cuttmere River to allow flooding. And we are in west. Sorry, yes. We are in contact with the National Trust because we're not sure if there is council-owned land. We've actually been in contact with the National Trust with maps this very day. So it is a hot topic. But obviously we have to prove whether there is an issue of council-owned land rather than it just being inside the Seaford boundaries.
No, there is.
When you have superior knowledge, could you let us know separately, please? Because it is a technical, legal land ownership issue that we need to resolve as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Right. The gentleman on the left on the front row, please.
Yeah, is that me?
Middle row.
Yeah, middle row.
That's right. Sorry.
You can go.
You go next, yeah. Item on the agenda 6, Hope Gap Steps. I've got a couple of queries on that. Is it 6? Yeah.
I think it's 4.
Well, Hope Gap Steps in here.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry. So I've just got a few queries on that. Has the council sought if a marine licence is required, since the base of the steps are actually below high water mark? So you would actually, as well as getting an SSI approval if you went ahead with doing anything, require a marine licence, I've been told, to do anything on that. The second thing is, I noticed that the Natural England said that they already need a sort of design and application before they make comments, but from experience of talking to people who deal with Natural England, it's very advisable to get as much information up front as you can, otherwise you'll find it takes 3 times longer than it otherwise would, because you just go around in circles with them. That's just from previous experience. And the other thing is to ensure that the design is of a durable nature. I think the existing structure probably has passed its sell-by date. I suspect that when you get civil engineer involved, if you do, then that might be the outcome of their report. So we need to look at perhaps what National Trust have done in Burling Gap and see whether something could be done that was of a prefabricated nature, which could withstand be there for a long time. I think the other thing is to say, regarding the moon carrot wildflowers, which Natural England mentioned, is anything being done to protect them at the moment? Because at the moment there's thousands of walkers walking down that area, and they all mill around where the Hope Gap Steps is. So if there is any moonflowers down there, they've been crushed to death by now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll take some of those points. I can't guarantee expertise on moonflowers, moon carrots, but I know it's regularly talked about in the joint management committee meetings. So thank you for your input. Gentleman on the front row.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Andrew Grimes. I'm a Seaford resident and business owner. This is to do with item 4, concessions. Sorry? It's agenda item 4 and point 8 of that. So it's regarding the concession process. Got 4 points. The first point might be contentious, I don't know. But it's come to my attention that one of the beachfront concessions awarded in March 2024 was given to someone who has been or is a member of staff at Seaford Town Council. Is the council aware of this, and can they give any assurances that there's no conflict of interest in awarding of this contract? Point 1. Point 2, I'm aware of 2 vendors who have lost their concessions in the latest February 25 concession review. Is it not fair that these vendors at least have a right of first refusal rather than just being turfed out? Point 3, the concession evaluation is scored from a total of 150 points. 60 points are awarded based on the business proposal. 90 points are awarded on the proposed price or pitch fee. The price points are awarded on a pro-rata basis, so the highest bidder will receive 90 points. For example, if somebody bids half of what they bid, they only receive 45 points. So if applicant A bids double, they get 90 points. Applicant B gets 45 points. That means that even if applicant B gets a full 60 points, they get 105 points in total. That means applicant A only needs to score 15 points on their business proposal or more to win the tender, according to the rules of that. Surely the council should consider a fixed flat fee for these premises so that people can apply for them and these be awarded purely on merit. And point 4, in March 2024, I failed in a bid for a beachfront concession. I asked Seaford Town Council for feedback on my application so that I might improve any future bids. All I received was the total scores of all the applicants with zero detail on where my application was lacking. That's 4 points. I could go on, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I'm on the same one on him. I've got a message here I would like to read out. It says, what is Seaford Town Council's reasoning behind doing away with successful businesses that have invested heavily in, i.e. South Hill Barn, Sorts Cafe and the Crepe Hut? Why not keep successful businesses that have all their assets and the residents and the visitors risk potentially less experienced businesses at those venues setting up? These established businesses losing their livelihood have made large investments. Why are the business owners not recognised for building these businesses up? That was my first question. Second question is, the Martello kiosk is prime. We are aware that the member of staff on there is also a councillor or a relative of the councillor. They have broken their contract on numerous occasions, not opening on the days. 365 days a year, as it states in the contract. They have broken that on many occasions, i.e. the 2 hottest days of the year, Monday and Tuesday of this week. All the other concessions have also, as far as my knowledge, best be adhered to their contracts. My last one is the same person that has been involved in winning the contracts involved in the same company?
not sure we can deal with that today, but we will be noting it, and we'll be forming.
It's been available online for many, many weeks about the Martello kiosk not being open. It's been all over Facebook.
I'm sure it is, but we can't
So-
give you a structured, comprehensive reply tonight. But thank you for saying what you said. That's going to be that.
Could I just get clarity on the last point that the lady made?
Yes.
Didn't quite catch it. Please.
We've been led to believe that the company that have taken over at least 2 of the concessions are the same company. Can we just have clarification if that is the case?
Which concession?
It will be the Salts and the Barn. I'm
The new
the new concessions. The people that have taken over, I've been led to believe are the same company, or involved within the same company. Thank you.
Okay. Right. I think I'm going to draw this session to an end. Is public participation everybody had? Melanie.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, please.
Good evening, Chair. Agenda item number 4, please. Seaford, a town by the sea, nestled by the downs, but Seaford has a secret. The iconic view of the Seven Sisters, but that view is outside of our town and district boundary. However, the privilege of this view comes responsibilities, and we've already talked slightly about TikTok, but they're actually causing problems up in the Peak District. The number of cars that are parked are so inconsiderate that the police can't make way, and they're having to have emergency meetings to try and make sure that they can sort the parking out up there. So I thank Seaford Town Council for having this item on the agenda and for looking to assess interim measures for this summer. We did have a meeting up at the barn with Councillor Wearmouth there and several other residents where we looked at some of the issues and talked round. Johnny Dennis, the executive lead for tourism, went off and met with the lead for the South Downs National Park and the local planners for Lewis and the South Downs National Park. One of the outcomes of the meeting was that Lewis District have agreed to pay or fund a survey by East Sussex County Council to do a highways report on the traffic in Chinkton Way. And this would be excellent because this would allow the county to look and evaluate the amount of traffic that's going along that road, to look at maybe traffic calming or other measures. I do appreciate that Seaford Town Council is also doing their own survey to look at the usage of the car park, and both of those surveys would be helpful because they're going to deliver different results and hopefully different outcomes. The South Downs National Park and their local plan are looking at regenerative tourism, and the idea behind this is the aim is for tourism to help give back more than it takes, and with that in mind that's also where the Lewis local plan is hoping to go. Briefly, East Sussex Public Health have commissioned Beachy Head ambassadors. There'll be volunteers up there that will have local history knowledge, natural environment, and they'll be also trying to help people improve their visitor experience. Can Seaford have these, or could Seaford have something similar? Then moving on to your points about parking. Coach parking, it is causing a problem on the streets around the South Hill Barn, and I think everybody is aware of that. But there is another side to coaches. They come with toilet facilities. The drivers are strictly regulated, and instead of 1 coach we could have 3, so I really don't know what a solution is on that one. B, the designated land, that would be taking land that I've just said is covered by all sorts of designations. You talk about signage, I don't understand that bit on point C. And point D, we could have QR codes for visitors so that they could be accessible in other languages. As a group of residents, we've done quite a bit surveying for the traffic to help build up the picture, and we've also done quite a bit of emailing out to different businesses that are bringing tourists there. So we do have a wealth of knowledge. If you want us to share it with us, that's absolutely fine. And we're asking if any informal meetings could take place so that discussions could be had about parking up there. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'd just like to add a personal thanks to everybody and the residents, the groups that I've met, the people who have undertaken the traffic surveys and generously given the data to the council. We are following that pace and we are trying to bring together an interim plan much faster than the original one, but I'm sure we'll go into that in detail. But we've had 2 meetings this
Well,
week.
my only suggestion was monitors or something like that, marshals at the car park. I missed that bit out. That was my only.
All right, well, we'll cover what we can in
Thank
what's
you.
going to be quite an interesting item 4. I'll hand you over to Sharon, who's our Asset and Projects Manager.
Thank you, Chair. So the Projects and Facilities Update report covers the Martello Change in Places facility, Seaford Town Christmas lights, Seaford Street Market review, Circle Racks installation update, Circle Barn working group parking. There are some points to consider in this report, one of those being the Christmas Magic date for 2025 and approval to move that date to the last Saturday in November. To consider and comment and welcome comments on the interim measures that are to be further investigated to help with parking congestion at South Barn in summer 25. And I would welcome any comments.
Can I also say that we have in front of us some written submissions that haven't been written out as well, particularly about South Hill Barn. So these are in front of councillors and will be taken seriously. Councillors, Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you. I'm happy Christmas. Merry Christmas out to you. Yeah, I'm happy with the 29th of November 2025 for Christmas Magic. I assume that date's been well researched and fits in with the local area and what's going on so far. That's what I'm assuming. I wouldn't have thought they'd pluck it out of the air. I know last year I was a bit reticent of having a date in November, and I suppose in the end it might go back to 1st of December, depending on the Saturday is really, doesn't it, and what else goes on and when Christmas is. But I'm happy to propose that particular date anyway, 29th of November 2025. And Merry Christmas again.
That's well taken, Councillor. Thank you very much indeed for that. Councillor Markwell.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas. I'm also wanting to talk about the Christmas Magic. I just want to congratulate the officers. We had a working group for Christmas Magic. It's done really, really well this year. There's a great partnership with the traders, the market and also Chamber of Commerce. And I also attended. And I guess one of the things, apart from the fact that it's not a recommendation, but I'm just raising it, so I'm being a bit cheeky really, but I would like to say that it was so successful that on our debriefing we have had to really think about, and we will be thinking throughout this year, about risks, health and safety, managing the crowds. And I suppose it was a joy not to be able to get to the stage when I actually got to Place Lane after the Lantern Parade, of which we had 700 people behind us, which was phenomenal, I have to say, and thank you to Skip for doing that and all that hard work. But it did bring to our attention that we need to manage this very, very well. And with that comes a fund, and even though this isn't the point where we raise funds or discuss funding, I will like just to put a marker out that we might need to revisit whatever budget we thought we had for Christmas Magic, because we need to take responsibility for our health and safety, and that needs to be perceived in terms of expense as well as coordination. So I suppose I'm just pointing that out at the moment, but I know it will be picked up later. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any more comments? Councillor Dugas.
Martello changing facilities, 1.5. You've said that the consultation period will be between March and May. I haven't seen any consultation that I can participate in. Where is this consultation publicised? How can our residents feed into it, please?
Yeah. It's going to be on Seaford Town Council's website, and that will be looked at by a separate team here in the offices at Seaford Town Council, and they are working on that detail at the moment so that they can meet the March deadline, open line.
So we're already in March, so will you be extending the deadline to June to allow that 3 month consultation?
Yeah, we would have to look at that,
Yeah.
so that it is 3 months.
And where else will you be putting it besides that? Will it go on the usual socials?
Yes, our usual socials and the website, and we would look to do a press release on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Honeyman again. Is this?
Back to the Christmas thing, it's different. It's a different.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it is. It's not about Christmas magic. It's about the Christmas lights.
Right.
Obviously, if we've had them for 3 years, does it get to a stage where it's cheaper to actually own them in the end? And I don't know the state of them. So, do we need to buy some new lights, or can we buy the old and any mending? And can they be extended a bit longer? That's basically the question.
So yes, we own them. We do maintain them as well, in part of the package that we work with the contractors on, which we are currently renegotiating, because our current one that we had has come to the end of its life. So eventually there will come to a stage where we won't be able to repair and maintain the lights that we have. So we will have to start looking at what we can maybe swap out or purchase more of, which is we would go through looking at how much each option is and what would be better for Seaford Town Council, because we do pay to store those as well.
So quickly coming back, I assume they give you recommendations about the state of the lights and what goes with that, so you can move forward based on that information. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Meek.
Thank you. I just wanted to, Chair, I wanted to reassure members of the public in the room about the seriousness with which the Southfield Barn Working Group has been taking the traffic problem at Southfield. We were set up, I'm a member of the working group, as some other members here are. The working group was initiated to look at Southfield Barn as an entity. And before very long it was recognised that there's a traffic issue as we have it. And so a lot of residents were saying, we don't want to do anything with Southfield Barn because we've already got a traffic problem. So that's how that came about. I would like to reassure everybody that it says in the report, are considering. We're considering all sorts of options. And one thing we don't want to do is to stop people coming to enjoy this beautiful place. We don't want to stop local enterprise and people who have initiated a good company, as you have described, sir. But we do have a real problem now. And as the lady was saying to start with, we've got people coming from all over now, and it's now being advertised. I mean, we've got huge problems. A lot of places have difficulty drumming up tourists. We've got the opposite problem. But we don't want to drive them away, but we've got to try and contain them and marshal them and organise it. And as the First Lady said, we do need to get something back from that as well. Because otherwise we are going to put an awful lot of infrastructure into place, and what's going to happen? More people are going to come, and more people are going to come. And if we're going to, even if we manage to find more car parking space up there, which we might be able to do, we will then, it's like building extra roads or wider roads or motorways, you just end up with more traffic. So, and the fact that it's an SSSI is another problem. And then we come to Hope Gap steps as well. And I understand your concerns about Mooncarrot and the other problems with the SSI. And coming to the gentleman about the Hope Gap steps, yes, I mean, the Gable Wall, they're completely gone. I remember 30 years ago coming to Seaford, and there was a huge infrastructure there. We've now got it, the sea is eating behind the steps, and we understand that there is cracks in the infrastructure of that, which is why we're concerned about it. And we do have to take a preventative look at that as a town council, which is why we blocked it off, because otherwise we could be liable for people hurting themselves. And I thank you, sir, for drawing attention to the marine aspect of that, and we might have to get permissions. I don't think we came across that before. I didn't anyway. So that's all very useful. So thanks very much. That's what I've got to say.
That's item 6 on our agenda. So
Yes,
but we'll perhaps come to
but
that
some of the
later.
members of the public might have gone by them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I've got 3 quick points of my own, but I'll just follow on from Councillor Meek very briefly, if I may, just to say that I'm the outside body rep for the National Nature Reserve proposal, which is coming forward with a target date of the autumn. Some of you I recognise in the audience, you might have heard me speak at full council, but for those who haven't, I have raised the specific issue that we've got here in terms of the number of tourists at the highest levels with the stakeholders of that, which include Natural England, the National Park, the new CEO of the National Park, and others. So they're very much aware of our unique challenge here. Thank you for indulging me in that. So to the 3 points that I wanted to make, the first one's, I'll do them backwards, on health and safety 9.2. Thanks very much for the report. Really pleased to hear that we've got initiatives like the probation service, some people working clearing the promenade near Bonningstedt, and also really welcome the vegetation clearance at High and Over as somewhere that I regularly go, and people who I speak to are very appreciative of that. But I did want to query what the latest is on the pitch surround barrier at the Crouch, that's the white railings, because more recently we've had some reports coming in of the rust leaving it very, very thin in places, and I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, but it would be good to touch base on that because I'm aware it's becoming quite acute. My other 2 points are, on the Martello Changing Places facility, it's a bit of a wicked problem, having spoken to some users myself. It's tricky with trying to get this balance right, and yes, I do have fears about a radar key and vandalism and so on. I just wonder, I know in previous meetings we spoke about actually speaking to the Changing Places organisation itself. I appreciate you've gone to muscular dystrophy, which is one of the main sort of charity organisations, but what are the manufacturers saying? Is there, have we done any sort of lobbying to say, well, is there something that's going to happen nationally, because I can't imagine we're the only place that has this particular issue, but that said, we're in the situation we're in, and I'm not opposed to a trial period. Hopefully it won't go too badly. And the third thing I wanted to say is actually to propose an amendment to recommendation 4, if it gets to go ahead. I know it's subject to recommendation 3. So this relates to the interim measures to be taken forward at Seaford Barn about parking for this season, and it suggests to delegate power to the town clerk in consultation with the chair of community services, which I'm absolutely fine with. But I do wonder, and I would like to propose that the Seaford Head Local Nature Reserve Management Committee are also part of this, perhaps not as an entire, that could be the council rep to that body would be in consultation with the chair, yourself, Councillor Wimmer, and the town clerk, so that we can make sure that that group is formally in on this. So that's my suggestion of an amendment.
Okay.
If anyone would like to second me.
Thank you. We'll bear that in mind. Sharon, would you like to pick those points apart?
Yeah, so if I go in the same order, the football barrier, we have been informed of some deterioration, but it looks like there needs to be a new inspection of that barrier. There is a meeting planned to discuss some items further with the football club, and the barrier is one of those on the agenda. I can't remember the second one, the Changing Places. We have had a meeting with the Changing Places main office. They use radar key at all of their sites. The sites that have extra measures are normally sites that are managed on site somewhere. So our facility is off site and it doesn't have somebody overseeing it at that site. So it's quite difficult for what we could introduce, and it could be a long drawn out scheme for a user wanting to use the facility when they're at site, but we may be holding the keys here, and then we have to transport that somehow. So at the moment the trial of the radar key is happening to see how that works for Seaford Town Council.
And just to add to that, we have had complaints when people had to pre-register with the council in order to have an extra secure access. We were then being accused of being too discriminatory and not helping people for day trips. So I think we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't, if you see what I mean. And I think we have to just proceed carefully and try to get the balance right, because we don't want to exclude people from the very good facility that we've got, because it does change people's lives if they feel that they can use it independently with dignity or with their carers. And in fact, the door was damaged over, we don't know how, over Christmas, and I reported it because it was wide open and could see the equipment inside for the first time. And we did manage to get it closed and it was not vandalised. So, you know, we have been there with this scenario, and we have been lucky, but we don't want to expose those assets to unwelcome attention. Yeah. Was there
And the
else?
last point was your recommendation for the Seaford Head Local Nature Reserve Committee, Management Committee. We have been in consultation with them about the suggestions that have been looked at already within the working group, and I think officers would welcome them to be included on that.
Okay. Right. Are we ready to move on the agenda items? So, can I have a proposal to note the...
Is this a convenient time to leave between agenda items?
Can we just finish, can we just finish the vote, and then we'll,
I thought you were moving agenda
we'll be able to allow the officer to...
Sorry, are you going to do the amendment if we get to 4?
Yes. Okay. So, can I have someone to propose that we note the contents of the report? Can I have a proposer? Councillor Olivia Werner, Honeymoon. Seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Walraven. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Right. Thank you. To approve the 2025 Seaford Christmas Magic event to be held on the 29th of November. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Honeyman. Seconder, Councillor Bristow. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No? Thank you. Right. To approve that works continue to investigate the interim measures set out in the report to help the parking congestion at South Hill Barn in summer 2025. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Meek. Seconder, Councillor Richard Honeyman. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Carried. So on that basis, we are proceeding to proposal 4. So we want to amend that to add the town clerk in consultation with the chair of community services and the councillor reps for the Seaford Head Nature Reserve Management Committee. So that would be yourself and Councillor Meek. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, there is that obviously we may be moving these things around at the year end, but as posts rather than individuals. Okay. Right. So presumably we're happy to accept that.
You have to vote on the amendment.
We have to. Right. Are we happy to vote on the amendment? To have the additional people. Councillor Duval.
So, yeah, I want to make another amendment because I don't think it should be down to the town clerk and the chair of community services to make this important decision. There's a lot of members of the public have strong feeling about this, and I don't think it should be down to 2 people to make this decision. I think it should come back to community services for them to decide what happens when all the options have been listed.
Well, community services is not going to continue. This is the last community services.
Right.
So it would have to be another. Yes, it would have to be decided where this item actually went, into which committee, and it would be May. So we can't have it that it goes to community services because it's not going to work like that. There isn't another community services meeting.
Well, at the next appropriate meeting, then are you saying the next appropriate meeting is the May one?
Yes.
think it's the 22nd of May.
Are you happy to suggest that?
I don't want to delay it, and obviously that's what that will mean, it's going to be delayed, but I still feel strongly that there should be more councillors involved in making that decision.
Councillor Honeyman?
As a member on the Seaford Barn Working Group, this is talking about interim measures, so we're not talking about the full works of everything, traffic schemes, traffic calming, everything which may and what some of the residents would probably like. If we do wait for other meetings, it'll be the summer when nothing will happen. So I think in the end it'll get worse if we do ignore it. We have to have a certain amount of delegation here, and there's key people, key officers, as what Councillor Bristow has mentioned, and there's key people in the town council, including Paul Quayle and Sharon herself as well, who are very much on board, and we do have full external traffic consultants as well. So I think we're going to delegate on this, mainly delegate this at the moment. That's my recommendation.
Right, so do you have a suggestion for an amendment?
Well, given the time scales, no, I'll go with Christina's suggestion.
Is that you seconding me?
Yeah.
We have a seconder.
Right, okay, so
the only thing I was going to suggest to land in the middle a little was what about the chair of the South Hill Barn Working Group being included with the councillors, so that there's 2 or 3 councillors with a viewpoint, rather than it being a smaller group with the town clerk?
Sure. So the amendment that is being suggested is in consultation with the Chair of Community Services, as is until an appropriate committee is reformed and people are nominated to that role, with the town clerk and the chair of the South Hill Barn Working Group. Is that, are you happy with that? Yes. Yeah. Right. So, have you got that? Yes. Okay. Do I have a proposer for that, please?
Sorry, just want to query, when will this actually take place? Because obviously time is ticking on with the summer coming up.
Well, my understanding is immediately.
That's fine.
This is under
sure
delegated authority.
Not...
The important thing is that as soon as the weather is good, we have a full car park up there. And you know, democracy is one great thing, but if we delay it for endless meetings, we're going to lose the opportunity to actually get anything done this summer. And I think that's importantly, it's a few key people with the information and the delegated authority and ability to make the decisions that really matters. But lasting decisions, obviously with major budgetary implications, will have to come back to whichever appropriate committee and full council, no doubt about it. So it's really just an interim measure to allow people to get on with things. Okay? So, proposer, Councillor Bistow, seconder, Councillor Dubar. All in favour for the amendment? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Okay. Are you happy with that? Okay. And so we have to delegate the power, and we have passed that. Okay. Right.
We have to vote on
We have to vote on the amendment. Okay.
Vote the whole lot.
Right. So we're voting on the amended item 4. Proposer, Councillor Honeyman, seconder, Councillor Markwell, all in favour. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, so shall we call a break now, and so we can escort any members of the public who would like to leave? Thank you very much. We're going to resume now that we've escorted most of the members of the public off the premises. Okay, is everybody happy to proceed now? Yes. So we're moving on swiftly now to item 5, which is to inform the Community Services Committee of income and expenditure. Who's going to speak to this? Because Lucy isn't here, is she?
Very good question. I think maybe if I just jump in. So just to say, obviously this is a standard agenda item at every committee meeting, just giving the income and expenditure figures year to date, and then there's an appendix that talks about the variances that are experienced as well. So I think we just welcome any questions and we'll do our best to fill them.
Okay. So we seem to be doing very well with income, but we're also spending quite a lot as well. So it's swings and roundabouts. Councillor Markle.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to my issue about Christmas magic. On point, on page 21, 4281, Christmas event expenses, just reassurance really that we are going to go through the expenses in our small group that runs now Christmas Magic, great collaborative, and it's really good we have this little partnership because it means it's very open and transparent in terms of what we can supply. And in fact the reason it was so successful was because they also gave up an enormous amount of time voluntarily in terms of what they normally would otherwise do, which of course is private sector, commercial sector work. So, but I suppose what my little niggle and concern is that we may well have to come back at some point during the year to ask for a little bit more money if we are going to proceed with ensuring that everything works super well next time, because it's become such an event and such an amazing, positive, probably our front focus event for the year, involving so many thousands, literally thousands of people, that we need to get it right, and I hope we don't skimp on expense because we need that to happen. So, just that.
Councillor Boylan.
Yeah, I'm touching on Christmas magic as well. And I don't want to be a killjoy because I think the Lantern Parade is terrific and how it involves families at no cost. But I do have concerns on how much it's gone up from last year. And so what Councillor Markler has said, you know, we'll look into the expenditure, but it is up by 3,000 and it is a lot of money, and we still, you know, and that's not covering everything. So yeah, I'll be pleased that if, you know, it can be looked into, because I'm sure it can be reduced and still have the same effect. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Did you want me to come back on it?
Yeah.
Did you want me to come
Yeah,
back on it?
please do, yeah.
So one of the reasons why I think the balance may have tipped a bit here is that when we delivered the whole event without the partners, we would have looked at taking some more income from things like stall rentals and the food concessions that were in the streets. And we aren't all, Seaford Town Council aren't organising that part of the event, so I think we aren't having a substantial amount of income coming back to cover some of the other costs that we've seen rise. And the engagement this year was probably 2 or 3 times more than what we would normally engage with the lantern making. So there was extra resource and product on top of what we've normally seen. Hence the 700 attendees at the parade.
I mean, like with skips, I mean, their 2 invoices came to just over 7,000. What do we actually get for that 7,000? To me, it's a large amount.
We can provide some more breakdowns if either this council want to see that, or committee want to see that, or whether yourself as a signatory for invoices wanted to have a look at that further.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
Yeah, can I just say, it was the first time I've been to Seaford Magic. I was incredibly impressed. I think that what I was impressed by most of all was the Lantern Parade and the families. The children were having the best time. I would hope that we don't think we should cut back on the lantern making and the cost of the lantern making, because clearly it seemed to me that was a central aspect of the success of Christmas Magic, and it differentiates Seaford from other parades. So I understand, you know, maybe we can think about how we bring in some income in another way, but please not cut back on lantern making.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Markle?
Yes.
Is this about Seaford Magic again?
Yeah, just adding to the issue, slightly different perspective, is just thinking perhaps in the future about sponsorship for that. We haven't thought about focusing on stuff, and I totally understand what Councillor Walraven is saying, and I think we do need to balance the books on this. But for lots of different reasons, you know, funds will go up, but we might be able to get sponsorship for some of that as well. So we just need to start thinking out the box on this a bit, and it's a bit organic in that we weren't expecting that perhaps, and I just do think positively that was Seaford Town Council also via engagement in all the schools, and that's a very positive thing.
Yeah.
And I've been round since as mayor to all the schools. I've nearly covered them all now, and I have to say again that positive relationship goes a long way in having a very positive local community, you know, recognising what Seaford Town Council is doing. So.
Good PR, isn't it? Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, and kind of to respond to Councillor Warren, I've said this before at meetings, there are some things that I think a council just should provide. And I mean, we're not a poor council at the moment. You know, we do have quite a lot of reserves and things like that. And I think if we spend 10 or 15,000 or something, if it's really beneficial for the community, this is what we do, we provide something. We don't have to always be getting something back from it. You know, I think it's just a positive that we can give the town for a really good feel factor, and it also generates that community thing, and also it helps the businesses. So, you know, it's a win-win, I think, really.
Councillor Bristow.
Thank you. Just an idea on that. I know we previously looked at sponsorship for various things, but also it might be possible, and I know Skipper are a charity themselves, although CIC, but to actually have further charity, maybe some grant funding or something, if it's a specific thing targeted for children, for example, the activity, we might be able to draw in a partner there for the event. But my main question is about sorry, I'm going blind to the things now. It's about the playground at the Crouch. I'm struggling to find the page that I thought I'd marked it. Yes, here we are, page 16, cost centre 106, line 4283, the playground. So we've got to spend £125, a budget of 5,000, and some quite large amount remaining. I note in the previous agenda item 9.2I, it says that the Crouch Playground will see repairs taking place to the wooden post on the rope bridge, that's a safety defect and has been passed to a playground contractor to be dealt with quickly. That's brilliant. I'm just wondering whether there are any plans for what to do with the rest of that budget line. And I'm looking at Sharon projects and facilities, but I know you may not know off the top of your head. I'm just wondering.
Want to answer that, Sharon?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. We have been talking about various items. I can't remember whether all of those are within the Crouch.
Okay, thanks. Maybe it's something we could pick up, because I know that if not directly within the playground, then there's quite a lot of vegetation which could maybe do with seeing to if we needed to redirect a bit of budget. So maybe as the ward councillor might have and other ward councillors, of course. Thank you.
Councillor Hyland.
I should comment on the Christmas Magic again. I agree with Councillor Taylor and Councillor Meek regarding the relatively small amount of money we spend on Christmas Magic really when compared to everything else when it comes in. So it would be a good, and for a lot of people, again, the highlight is when it does start getting darker and having all the lanterns, and then the formal sort of lighting of the actual lights themselves. Even though I know they've been tested out previously, but you have to get into the Christmas spirit, of course, don't you? I mean, obviously there could be other things you could look at, the peripheral side, which I'm sure does get looked at, what you do on your side. But obviously we use the Creed, don't we, as a base, which is fantastic to get them involved because they're geared up for the youth and the children as well. And it's a great facility, and they're one of the good partners, which obviously Councillor Honeyman, when she was mayor herself, got involved with. And I think it's really good to use them as that particular base, which is just on the other side of this particular town centre. So I wouldn't like it to be cut back in any way, what the capacity. I know you're going to have a plan B because sometimes with the bad weather, but that's slightly different. My other comment was based on the bus shelters, especially the one at Barn Rice. I can't see any maintenance done on it so far, even though there's some sort of money there. I wonder where we are with that particular project.
We've been obtaining quotes to be able to look at the maintenance
of the said bus shelter?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in progress?
Yes, it is in progress.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know it's written down now, there's still money there to be spent. So.
Yeah, so we do know that that's there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Dugas.
I'd like to know why we've given away the income side of Christmas Magic, please.
Can you answer that,
Yeah,
Sharon,
I can
or is that
answer.
a Lucy question?
So giving away the income side is because we couldn't manage the facilitation of the stalls within the High Street, the Lantern Parade, the Christmas Grotto, and all the other areas of the event. Historically, Seaford Town Council have always provided the lantern making as a free part of Christmas Magic. So we've worked with other partners in town to help us provide.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we charge for that. What I'm saying is we've got food stalls that are paying somebody to be there and they're not paying us. Stalls are there and they're not paying us. That is a huge income potential for us. And given that we've got new staff coming in, why are we not managing it this year?
So we're still going to be working with those partners, and within those Christmas Magic Committee meetings, the next meeting is being held in 2 weeks' time, and on that agenda is the budgets and how that works with how that income is looked at and spent for the whole event.
But didn't you just say earlier that there was £7,000 of income that we didn't get?
Not £7,000.
I misunderstand.
Yeah, I think that was what we've spent.
So are we taking the money in for the stalls and the food?
No.
Who gets that?
Somebody else in the committee that's organising the stalls.
So why aren't we organising the stalls if we've got more staff?
It came down to capacity to
Yeah.
deliver these, and I think what Sharon was saying there is...
I know in the past we've had no capacity, but going forward we'll have a full complement of staff. So why are we giving that away? I haven't quite understood that.
I mean, I don't think that the new staff won't be embedded in time for this year's event, that's for sure, by the time we've done the recruitment, the onboarding. I mean, like Sharon said, we've already got the meetings, the event planning meetings taking place now. But I don't know, it may be an option, obviously to look at the 2026 event and the shape of that once we know that we've got the full complement of staff to potentially be able to do more in-house.
Okay. Councillor Bristol.
Just going to come in on that and say that unless I am making things up, I do believe that we voted on the arrangements for it in a previous meeting, presumably it was this committee. Because of that, and I'm pleased to hear that it might be revisited in the future when our staff numbers are up.
Okay, all right. Councillor Lockhart.
Can I just respond?
Is this more about Christmas Magic? This is sort of turning into a discussion, really.
All right,
I think we do need to move on, if you don't mind. Okay. So what I'd like to do is go back to the original proposal, and we're asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Warren, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Taylor, thank you. Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Right, so item 6, this is an update on Hope Gap Steps, a most welcome contribution. So, Sharon,
yes.
Talk to this, please.
Okay, so this is to provide an update on the progress of work undertaken to date and the proposed next steps to continue this work, assessing the medium to long-term solutions with Hope Gap Steps. The projects and facilities team have done some investigation with Natural England as to what they would and wouldn't allow to us to do with the site. We reached a certain point with Natural England, and then I think they've asked us to put that information into a formal request for them to look at with the negotiations. But they weren't adverse to us looking at doing something.
No, fair enough, yeah.
So that's where we are at the moment. And then we need to now submit a formal application and maybe look at some professional construction opinions of what our next steps are.
I think it's really an options appraisal, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
On the basis
Yeah.
of what is there. When it's very severely eroded cliff,
Yeah.
I think is
yeah,
would need very major work to rescue it. So I think we just need the information to be able to make an evidence-based decision about future. Yeah. But I'm glad that we finally had this discussion with Natural England and moved things forward, because we did seem to be in a bit of an impasse for a while, and I'm very pleased to see this on the agenda and that progress has been made. Councillor Meek.
Thank you. I just wondered, I've got about three things. I just wondered if you found what the gentleman said interesting and useful about the marine application, and also what about having quite a detailed plan for Natural England, otherwise they kind of nothing happens. But I wondered whether there's going to be an option, because we're talking about just mending the steps, and I know you said there's short-term, medium-term solutions to this.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if is there any point in discussing with them, maybe in conjunction with a structural engineer, whether it's worth doing anything if you are in fact going to try and do something like Burning Gap, or how that works out, balancing those kind of options, because you could end up spending quite a lot of money just to do a very minor repair, just so that people can use it for we don't even know how long, when actually the longer term solution is going to be really quite expensive, and we would then hopefully maybe be using a bid writer or something to try and get some funding from somewhere, from contacts you've got, and making, and I think sometimes the public doesn't quite understand how complicated this is for us as a council trying to deal with, when there are so many unknowns and we're dealing with specialist people.
Yeah. I mean, would you like to answer?
Well, yeah, I'm relatively new to this, so but my sort of thoughts are there's three options really. You leave it to gradually sort of erode and go away. The trouble with that is it remains a public safety hazard, so that's not really feasible. Repairing it, probably beyond that, I think, or replacing. I think we were concerned about the geological, impact on the cliff face. A sort of off-record geologist's feedback has been, as long as it doesn't go beyond what it is now in terms of the massing, then it doesn't really cause any issues there. Obviously, there's the ecological side on the grass flows, the grass at the top, and the fauna there, the flora and fauna up there. I think we need it's quite a specialist marine structural engineer to come up with the options. I think it would be very helpful to go to National Trust and see what their experience is, because obviously they must have sought some advice at Burning Gap as to how they did them. I mean, that seems to be very effective, and I'm going to probably regret this, but not that expensive in the scheme of things, because it was a fairly sort of simple prefabbed metal structure. Obviously the foundations are key. Then you're going into the beach, and then that's why I mentioned that marine licence. I think that that's a very valid point. Notwithstanding that there are other stakeholders with vested interests in that area. We know who they are. so we have to make sure that we're, aligned with their expectations as well. My gut feeling is probably replacing them seems to be the way to go. That's definitely seems to be the feedback from the public and what have you. So I think that's where we're heading. I would just be, the cost is going to be significant. That's the Thank you.
I think we're not just looking for an estimate for repairing the bottom of the steps. I think we're looking at a full options appraisal of our different options so that we have really got a proper discussion in front of us on next consideration. Councillor Bristow and then Councillor Dubas.
Yeah, thank you. So following on quite neatly, I hope, from Councillor Meek's question. I'm really pleased that we're having conversations with Natural England and where that's got to. I think that's brilliant. I do remember, I can't remember whether it was within a meeting or out with a meeting, but we spoke about a marine approach. Particularly some of you will know that I actually worked in marine consenting for much of my career, including in structures and operations in the intertidal zone. So, although I was in Scotland, not here. But yeah, I would certainly, presumably Natural England will have some contacts anyway, but to go to the Marine Management Organisation and find out what might be needed. They do have quite a lot of information on their website actually, sort of first port of call stuff. But to my mind, an options appraisal, yes, my gut feeling is that actually dealing with the existing steps is going to be probably just as much of a headache, a challenge, as putting in a new structure if that's what we decide to do. Because decommissioning those, I don't think is going to be very easy. You can't just stick some explosives in there at that site and, do you let it go away? What do you do? Presumably a structural engineer who makes that, we say here 3.4, an expert consultant, who will assess, how they might, whether they might break down in some easy fashion or not. And that, my gut feeling would be initially a marine operation to take them away, but we have this really quite extensive shallow wave cut platform there, which would make that quite difficult. So it is a really, I would be fascinated to know how they got there in the first place in the late 70s, early 80s. I don't know, that might be a museum trip. But yeah, so really excited to see where this leads, but I would just suggest trying to do things as much in parallel from both perspectives, because it might be that you need both as well.
Thank you. Councillor Dubas,
I just wanted to say, can we make sure that we do contact whoever's responsible for Burling Gap steps to find out who they're used and how much it cost and what hoops they have to jump through, as well as the options appraisal, and do that in parallel, because that will give us an idea of cost.
I understand that Louise Lawrence did that before she left, but I don't have any feedback about what the actual outcome was, but she had reached out to the National Trust because, and Councillor Jim Lord has also offered his help with these things, because I think he was involved in some way as well. So I think there are people able and willing to give their share their experience. So we just need to get these things going. Right, okay, are we happy to move to vote? So we're recommended to note the contents of the report. Can I have a second proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Mead. Seconder, Councillor Bristow. All those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, moving swiftly on.
Sorry to interrupt, I need to go.
Yes, okay. Item 7, compostable toilets. Over to you, Sherry.
Okay. So this is an update to Community Services Committee on the relocation of the compostable toilet units and to seek approval of the specific location of the relocation of these units. We have previously discussed this at committee, and it was agreed to locate one of these compostable units within Crouch Gardens, within Crouch, and another within the courtyard at South Hill Barn. Both of The units as they're displayed at the moment together are quite large, and they've got accessible ramps that come off of those. They would be broken down into one style of shed unit with a ramp. Officers have been looking and measuring in the crouch, and with the size of those units, the ramp being accessible from any pathways, and the need to empty those units, there isn't a sensible location to recommend to put one of those units in the crouch. The other recommendation within this paper is to look at the possibility of moving the already allocated unit from within the courtyard at South Hill Barn, given the size of that unit and the proximity to the food and drink concession, which is sitting right next door to it within an enclosed space. And the suggestion within this report is to look at placement of both of the units at South Hill Barn, outside of the courtyard, along the wall where the current mural is left from Walk the Chalk event that was held there, with a small accessible path that leads up to one ramp and the units sitting next to each other. The reason for that suggestion was that we had them both sited at a location that maybe needs the requirement of toilets. And I suppose I'd open it up to the stage for any comments or feedback.
Any questions? Councillor Bristow.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. I, as a ward councillor at the Crouch, I've heard very mixed views about having a compostable toilet at the Crouch. There's certainly a lot of interest in having a toilet at the Crouch, and I must mention the Seaford Community Garden, who are very keen to have a provision for when their current access ends, especially given that they're trying to ramp up their activities there in terms of time. I can completely see the need to have the 2 units up at South Hill Barn. I think we all know that there's an issue with there not being any proper toilets up there. And I can fully follow why it would not be favourable to have them in the courtyard. However, I do have a concern in locating them on the grassy area outside there, and that is back to this sort of antisocial behaviour, providing somewhere up there. I frequently walk up there on summer evenings, often quite late actually, but before it gets dark. And there's quite a lot of overnight camping on occasions up there, you know, in vehicles. And I would like to know how they'll be locked and secured. I know we sort of had a similar query down at Martello, and I don't know whether we ever formed an official view about whether they attracted more motorhomes and whatnot or not, but that's my fear, and I just wonder whether officers are able to speak to that and hopefully allay my fear a little bit.
Yeah, so they would be locked when they're cleaned at the end of the day, when then it will be scheduled for them to be reopened, so there would be a period of time during the in season and out of season that would have variable times that we would do that. They would obviously be open and unmanned for the day, exactly the same as what we've got now at the Martello area. But yes, there isn't any other plan around the secure.
Councillor Mark.
Well, hopefully the interim measures that you're going to discuss for South Hill Barn, which might include a height bar at some point, might deter some of the camper van users actually going up and needing to use those particular facilities. I don't know, but it's worth it.
Can I ask a question on behalf of a resident who contacted me about, we know that the units have ramps, but would there be difficulty with people with mobility issues actually getting from the car park to the ramp? Accessible can be just ordinarily accessible, or it can have disability overtones. But I well understand that there may be an issue for people who can walk, you know, on certain surfaces, but they may have difficulty actually getting to the ramp to find the accessible toilet. So it was just really bringing up a valid point that a resident had made with me.
That's good. Well, that's absolutely, yeah. Off the top of my head, there might be a way of moving the ramp so that it sort of joins to the sort of hard standing, so you've got a fairly level and unstepped access. If it's pushed back further into the field, then you'd need to create a reasonably good level surface. So it would involve obviously more expense doing that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or queries, Councillor Meek?
Just a comment. I think it's a good initiative to have it outside the yard, because one of the big concerns we always had was, well, if the concession's closed, then the yard gate is closed, and therefore maybe for 2 days a week there won't be access to toilets there, which is ridiculous, really. I know on high days and holidays it will bound to be open, but there's all those other times when we need to be providing that facility. So I'm fully supportive of that. I do agree with Councillor Bristow that, you know, and maybe, you know, if we were to have some kind of monitoring up there, whether it was CCTV or whatever, we decide maybe with the parking that would help to oversee that. Whether we would ever be able to check up on the footage is another matter, because as we said, we haven't got staff facility to go through, you know, tons, you know, hours of footage to try and find the one time when we might be able to identify who it was who did whatever they did. So it's always a question of how you police these things, which is all the traffic problem, is how you police it, how you enforce it. And this is a big problem we've got, and we might have to try and hope that technology will help us, but it's a question of identifying the right way to do that. And then how to enforce it afterwards.
And with no utilities either.
Yeah,
that's the major problem.
Yes, that's right.
Councillor Duba.
My concern is that at the moment there are no toilets and we've got thousands of visitors. The minute you put toilets in, that gives people the thought that we're responsible for the toilets. Thousands of people using those toilets, using toilet paper and gel or whatever else we're putting in there. That comes down to a cost to us. And then, can you imagine the state of the toilets? That's going to be down to us. They're going to complain that it's us. And I worry that we shouldn't be putting toilets there at all, because it will come back and bite us.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
Did Councillor Honeyman want to
Oh,
go before
yes.
me?
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes. Councillor Honeyman,
I was
thank
just
you.
going to ask, 2.6 says recognising there's level of need of the crouch. To review the revision, is there any sort of timescale for that? Because I know it's something that has come up quite a few times about what's going on about the toilets at the crouch. Over the years it's come up many times. So I just wondered if there's a timescale when that it's being looked into, so we can actually say to residents, right, something is happening.
At the moment, there hasn't been a timescale put on to that project as such.
Okay.
So that would be something that I think we would need to look at.
Is that something where with the new restructure, new staffing coming in,
I think we would
it's
have
something that would be on the top of the list or some one of the top things?
What may be worth saying is, I know it's a bit further in the agenda, but when we get to the projects log, it's talking about splitting that log, so you'll have a projects log for assets and facilities and for GOSCA. I actually can't remember where the barn sits with those two committees, but but that sort of project could then sit within a project log, and the committee would then determine the priority order.
Yeah, I know it's something that obviously has come up quite a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Councillor Bristow.
Thanks. So just two quick things. Firstly, through you, Chair, if I may build on what Councillor DeBath was saying about having toilets there and attracting people to need the toilet. I don't know whether you've ever walked and had a look in the bushes between South Hill Barn and where the view is. There's a lot of white. I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot of, you know, there is a problem up there that needs solving. But what I was originally going to say is, given the variety of visitors who we have up at South Hill Barn, could we look as a priority to get instructions for the toilets in multiple languages, please? Because I think that would be very, very useful.
I think that opens up a lot more about our communication strategy, use of QR codes for a lot more information on just the toilets, but safety issues, parking, a lot of things. If we can use QR codes as part of the new technology to communicate with a lot of visitors who speak little or no English, I think that would be a good use of modern technology. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay. Right. So we are asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Taylor, second to Councillor Haley. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Right. Secondly, to agree that the compostable toilet unit being relocated to Seaford Barn will be placed outside the courtyard area on the grassed area adjoining the West Barn as per the map. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Bristow, seconder. Councillor Meek, all those in favour? Any against? Councillor Dubar. Any abstentions? Councillor Honeyman, thank you. Thirdly, to note the recommendation not to relocate one of the compostable toilets to the Crouch. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Bristow, seconder please. Councillor Honeyman, and all those in favour? Yes. Any against? None. Any abstentions? None. And finally, to approve the second compostable toilet unit is placed also at Seaford Barn. So could I have a proposer to this last proposal? Councillor Meek, secondly Councillor Taylor. Thank you. All those in favour? Any against? Councillor Dubar. Any abstentions? Councillor Hayman. Thank you.
Can I say one thing? I'm allowed to. No, it's too late now.
No, it's too late. Sorry.
Too late.
Sorry. Okay, item 8. Right, these are the beach huts, the seasonal hut programme scheme. Over to you, Sharon, again.
Okay. So this is to update on the delivery of the Westview seasonal beach huts and to seek approval of a new flat rate daily hire. The reason behind looking at a flat rate daily hire is this scheme was introduced to enable all residents access to be able to hire a beach hut within Seaford. We do have a waiting list currently for the Martello beach huts. That is a substantial cost. If you reach the top of the waiting list and were offered one of those beach huts, so that may limit some of our community being able to have the access to that facility. So when this project of the Westview seasonal beach huts was introduced, it was to enable a mixture of people within the community to hire. They were rented at that point on a daily basis or a weekly basis. We then had COVID, and because of different cleaning restrictions and regulations which were introduced at that time, daily hire was difficult for us to enable and be able to charge for the cleaning involved in all of the charges that we wanted to offer and limit those charges for the residents. So the scheme then moved to either a full week of hire or a weekend or a midweek of hire. That was working reasonably well as we were coming out of COVID with quite a few hires, frequent hires throughout the whole of the year. We are noticing now that hires are great during any holiday seasons within the period that we have these huts on site, but outside of that it's started to decrease and they are sitting empty quite a bit of the time in lovely days and lovely weather that we're experiencing, particularly at weekends when lots of different people will be able to use the huts. So looking at daily hire, it meant that people could still hire for their week or their weekend, but then other residents would still be able to afford to hire for just a day or 2 days. So I welcome any comments.
Councillor Walry.
Yes, I can remember the first year they were there on a daily
basis, and they were very popular.
Yeah.
You know, like children's parties and just sort of, you know, if you had a special occasion like a birthday or whatever, you spend the day on the beach, on the beach hut, and they were. So I do support that coming back, because it's not everybody who can afford, you know, a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Taylor?
I've rented a beach hut 2 years in a row for when my grandchildren come from Devon. They can't be here the whole week. Works perfectly. I really think we have, I think your comment about the weather last year may well have had an effect, and that it was, not as good as it has been before. I couldn't see, I mean, I'm sure you've got it worked out, like what does a day mean and how is the cleaning going to work, and those kinds of details, because it clearly means quite a lot more work for the team who will be managing all of that. And I assume there'll be support from the concession because they are managing it in part, aren't they? Frankie's.
Yeah, so if I could answer that, Frankie's do help with the concession, do help with key allocation on site for us. They do oversee the toilet facilities, so if there was any problems, that they could report that back to officers. And they do also manage the cleaning of each of those units and inspect them when people leave, so that they are ready for the next hirer to enter. So yeah, we have worked a scheme out with them to be able to follow this through.
Any other questions? Councillor Brister.
I welcome this. I think it's good to make, good to try something a bit different and to make it more accessible to everybody. One thing I am unclear about is the placement of them the last few years has been quite difficult, in this sort of created a bit of a chicane, particularly for when there are bicycles going past, skates, dogs, anyone who doesn't want to be too near each other. And I'm just wondering whether that's something you're going to address for this year.
Yeah. This year we will only see the beach huts returning. We won't be seeing the concession huts returning following the tender process that we went through. So with that, just the placement of those help with people movement, the movement around, because they then won't have to go in and out of the units. On a kind of a side note to that, STC do have planning permission from LDC of the actual layout that we have to put them in. And we seeked approval to be able to move the rentals to the front of the promenade for people using to spill out, because we don't have a control over all the families attending, or whether they've got 5 people or 20 people attending their gathering and using that hut for the day. So then they can spill it onto the beach and not onto the promenade and limit access for everybody to use.
Good point. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Duba.
I did ask for the planning permission to be revised so that next year, if we do progress with the commercial beach huts, they can be positioned slightly further out than the daily rental beach huts. So can that be noted for work to be done, please?
Right, okay, I think we're ready to move to a vote. So we're asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Walraven, seconder. Councillor Markwell. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. And secondly, to approve a new daily hire structure for all 8 seasonal beach huts for peak and off-peak seasons. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Bristow, seconder. Councillor Taylor, all those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Right, we're now moving on to, is everybody okay, or does anyone want a break before we go? No, you want to go? Right, so we're on item 9, which is the project log. Would you like to speak again? This is quite a stretch for you.
Me again. Sharing the project's log as Appendix A, to considering the contents of the report as it is presented to you. And this will be the last time that the project's log will be presented in this way, given the new structure of our committees, and officers will be looking at how we can present this information to you going forwards with that new structure. So, any comments?
It's wondering why some of these are active when, like the Martello lease, that's actually been completed, but it still says active. Why doesn't it say completed, or why isn't it off?
What number was that?
Page 41. Oh, sorry, number 6.
I don't think we've actually completed that piece of work.
I think we've entered into the tenancy at will, but not the full lease.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just ask it, so what you were saying was how to present it is because it's going to be, you think it'll be going to different committees now, so it's a question of how you divide it up.
Yeah.
And then presumably it becomes differently accounted for as well. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you. Yeah, I see that.
Maybe just to add to that, I think one of the key things it says in here as well is about trying to align it better with the strategic plan as well, because at the moment they're two very separate documents, so it's about making sure that the two are working together rather than separate from an officer's perspective as well, so we can easily align to what the strategic direction is as well.
Right, thank you.
Okay. I've got a query about item 20, the fields in trust. Because you're now talking about 3 STC sites, the Salts, the Crouch and the Martello Fields. I thought after the discussion about the health hub and the leisure centre that there was a request that those green spaces were included in the fields in trust as well. Does that ring any bells?
Do you want me to?
I mean, you can.
Either
you would have been in those conversations more than me.
Yeah, so I think there was something noted about lobbying LDC to look at getting some of its land registered with the fields in trust, and that did happen back at the time. I don't think it's been kind of pursued again to find out whether it went anywhere, but I don't know if any of our dual-hatted councillors may know.
Right. Can we make inquiries about that really? If it's LDC land, then we need to know if it could be going all together.
What I might just add is we had a really good meeting with the Fields of Trust kind of local officer, and she said that there was a list available that showed you all of the registered sites in the local area, so that's something that we've got noted to have a look at where else is registered, are there people you could have a talk to find out about how they've approached it. But certainly we can follow up.
That would be very useful, because if we could have some sort of link on the website or something, because I think that is something that local residents feel quite strongly about, that if we've fought to protect these green spaces, we want to do something to protect them more in perpetuity rather than just the next planning application. So I think that is something that's quite close to a lot of people's hearts. Sorry, Councillor Bristow? No. Councillor Haynes.
Just following what you say, a good example is Guildridge Park Eastbourne, where I don't know if many of you know, but it's quite a large part, originally Duke of Devonshire's land, given to the town of Eastbourne now, of course. But it's a good example because it does have it's very well landscaped, but it's it's not as though development never happens there, especially if it's in relation to sports, things are still, which a lot of these three we mentioned, can still happen, so you are allowed a certain amount of development. It doesn't totally stop development, that's what I was trying to say, but just be aware of that. That's a good example of a building trust. You'll see there's tennis courts there, there's coffee shops, cricket, the works, but have a look at that particular one if you're ever in that part of this side of Eastbourne.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, so we're asked to note the contents of the report and the project log. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Markwell. A seconder, please. Anybody? Councillor Warren, thank you. All those in favour? Okay, those against? Any abstentions? Right, so we'll move swiftly to the final item, which is really rather fitting since it's our last which is rather fitting because this is the last per se community services, and this is sort of the last meeting that I'm chairing as well, so it brings it together quite nicely. I would just add that there is a slight typo in the agenda because it's the committee is advised under action, it's not the subcommittee. There's been a transcription error there. But it's really just to note what everybody, all the hard work, because for every hour that we spend here, we know that officers spend a lot of time trying to get these facts together, and there's a lot of very routine, not very nice work, particularly with toilets and dog emptying bins and various things, but it's how we're judged as a town, really. These basic facilities are what people judge us by, and it's very necessary and essential work. So it's really just to say thank you to everybody who's been involved, both councillors over the years and officers. Councillor
I'd like to propose an amendment, which is the same amendment that I proposed with the Climate Change Subcommittee on a very similar report, which Councillor Wimmer, I hope this isn't inappropriate given what you've just said, but I, at Climate Change, have proposed that we include officers in our thanks, the efforts and support of officers to this. So you may like to consider that amendment to point to.
Yep. I think I sort of mentioned that really, didn't I? But yes. Any other comments? Councillor Markwell?
Absolutely. I'd like to just propose a vote of thanks to the Chair and the Vice Chair as well, for Deputy Chair for this group as well as the officers, because you've done an amazing job, and it's, I think, what the gentleman said earlier, that had been on the committee 10 years ago or whatever, and Councillor Warraven knows, you know, we have been making some really strong and careful decisions this year, and to actually move forward and recognise that we have so much work that we are starting to be positive and direct our channel this work in being able to have, you know, 2 different project logs and 2 different areas of responsibility, and to recognise where those talents are, I think is really tremendous that we've got to that point. So I think it's not just about the committee, you know, changing, but it's about all the work that's gone on behind the scenes from officers and the new interim town clerk that's actually made this happen today. But you've had a lot to do with that as well, I know, all of you, and well done, thanks very much.
Could I just mention, obviously, the Climate Change Subcommittee, which has also come to an end, obviously, especially with Councillor Bristow's input in the last year or 2 as well, so for that as well. So you've noted it on one of the last items in there, but it has been important, and it does generally link to community services, although not exclusively. So.
Okay. Officers, before we move the agenda, have you got any comments or any replies?
I think other than to say, looking back through, 2002 to date, to get the data for this report, it was fascinating to see the journey the committee's been on, the amount of reports, the amount of public that have been spoken to this committee. You know, it's definitely one of the ones that really kind of grabs people's attention and passion, and it was really noticeable going through. So it's exciting now for our next 2 committees going forward that we're going to have twice the amount of engagement and involvement.
Correct. Okay. Right.
Bring it on.
Okay. All right. So we're asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Honeyman, and a seconder, please. Councillor Markwell. Those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? And we're asked to amend item 2 to pass a motion of thanks to all current and former officers and councillors, including the climate subcommittee. Yeah. So we'll have everybody in there for their role in driving and supporting the work of the committee. So can I have a proposer for that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Meek. A seconder, Councillor Honeyman. Those in favour of the amendment? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So now we are going to pass a motion on that amendment. I'm getting this right. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Right, thank you.
Perfect.